You are in a front-end interview. The interviewer smiles and says, "Can you build one autocomplete search bar that fetches the GitHub usernames?" Your brain be like, "I Google this all the time." If this sounds like you, pause and breathe. In this video, we'll not only build it, but we'll win it like a pro. And guess what? This exact question has been asked at real interviews at Microsoft, Razorpay, and Atlassian. I'll recommend you watching this complete Win Machine Coding interview series, which will make you interview proof. So let's get started. So today's challenge is simple but tricky. Build an autocomplete search bar using React and TypeScript that number 1 fetches GitHub usernames as you type, stores the last 10 searched users in the local storage, displays the suggestions in the dropdown, and it is user friendly. Let's break this down and code together like a boss. So this is one basic React TypeScript app. It has nothing. So currently it is saying Win Machine Coding in React with Shubham. So we are going to build one autocomplete component here so that we can integrate it with the app. So let's build that. So I'll create one file, autocomplete.tsx, as we are using TypeScript. So we'll use .TypeScript XML extension here. So let's create the autocomplete. This is autocomplete component. So this component will have one container of the autocomplete. So let's call it autocomplete container. Okay, so that we can style it. We can also add one heading, one h2 heading here. So that will be the title of the autocomplete component. So we'll add that as well. So let's call it autocomplete title. Okay, and let's call it GitHub user name search. Okay, the main part of our autocomplete component will be the input element. So let's add that. And let's give the class as autocomplete input. We'll add the placeholder here. So the placeholder will be search your username. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's integrate this autocomplete component in the app. So here we don't have anything currently, so let's import that. Okay, we can see GitHub username search is displayed here, and we have the input element as well with the placeholder. Obviously, we'll style it at the last so that we'll focus on the core logic first, and then at the end we can style it. So currently we are able to see the heading and the input here. Let's make this input as controlled component. So what are controlled components? We'll assign the value and on change props on the input, and we'll track whatever we are typing into the use state variable. So this is called a controlled component. So let's add one use state variable here, and let's call it query, as we'll be adding search query. Okay, and it will be a search string, so we'll pass the type as string, and let's import the use state from React, and by default we'll place the value as empty string. Okay, we'll bind this value to the value prop on the input. Okay, and we'll require the on change handler. Let's call it handle change. We'll add this handler here. Okay, so this will be a function which will receive the event. And what will be the type of this event? So the type of this event will be React change event of input element. So let's include that. Okay, so let's grab the value of the input. So how we can get the value typed into the input? So it will get it in the event.target.value. correct, and we'll set that value into the query. So set query and value, correct. So here I have made one mistake. I've written value here, but it should be query, correct. So if we just save it, we'll be able to type it here and it will be stored in the state. So to get clear picture what is happening in the query, I'll console log the query variable. Query, let's see in the console. So let's type something here. Okay, you can see here whatever we are typing in here can be seen in the console. So that's how the set query is working. So whenever we type one letter here, so it will be set in the query state variable, right? So that is how it is working. So as we have to search the GitHub usernames, we'll use the public API of GitHub for searching the usernames, and we'll fetch that using the fetch API, and we'll store that into one local state variable using useState. So let's do that first. So let's create one function here. So and let's call it const fetch users, and that function will be async as we have to call the API and that operation is asynchronous. Great. GitHub has one common API for searching the users. So let's get the URL of that API stored here in a constant. Okay, and this queue is for search string. Whatever the user name search string we have to pass, we can pass into this query param. So what we can do is for now we'll delete this one and we'll add our query param by concatenating this string here. So let's use this API endpoint. Let's make the use of the fetch API here, data, and we'll need to await this as this is a asynchronous API call. Fetch, and what we can do is we can use this GitHub URL plus. So we'll have to somehow pass the query string to this API. So what we can do is we'll take the query string as a parameter here and we'll just attach it here. Okay, so it will become q equals to, and then again whatever, like if you have to search Shubham, so it will get at this place. So this is how we'll get the results from here. Okay, so in fetch we don't get the data directly. What we have to do is have to parse it using the .json method. So let's do that. So res means results, await data dot JSON. Okay, so in this res variable we'll get the JSON data. Whatever data we are getting from the GitHub API, we can store it in the local state variable using the results. So let's create one use state variable here. We'll add some spacing here to avoid the cluttering of code. Results, let's call it set results. Okay, use state. Okay, but in which format we'll get the data from the GitHub API? So there is a specific format. So we'll create one interface for that format. So let's call it GitHub user. And what fields we'll get in the response array? We'll get the login key. So it is nothing but the username of the GitHub user, and we'll get one avatar URL, which will be again a string. Okay, yeah, so we'll be getting data in this format from the GitHub API. So that's standard by GitHub. So let's make use of this type in the use state, as we have to store the same data in this state, this results variable, GitHub user, and it will be the list of this GitHub user. So let's make it array. Okay, and by default it will be empty array. Okay, so after fetching the results, we have to store these in the results variable. But if GitHub returns thousands of records, will we store it? No, we want just top 10 or top 20 records to be stored in the results state. So we'll make use of array slice method and we'll store only the top 10 records from the response that we got from the GitHub API. So let's make use of that. But what if this API returns some unwanted value like null or undefined? So in that case, we'll give it one fallback of empty array. So now we have successfully created this fetch user functions which will fetch the data from GitHub API. Let's call this function inside our handle change. So as per requirement, we have to call this search API whenever we type something in the input. But should we call this API on every keystroke or every letter we type? We shouldn't, because if we hit this API on every keystroke, then we'll soon be blocked by GitHub API because of the rate limit. So let's not do that. So how we can tackle this problem? If you use the Google or any other like YouTube autocomplete components, what they do is they have implemented one concept called debouncing. The app will only hit the API when the user has stopped typing, and it will take some amount of time in between. So this is called debouncing, and that we have to implement here. So how will we implement debouncing here? So we'll take one timeout ref. In that timeout ref, we'll store the timer value of set timeout, and if that timer is present, we'll only call the API when this timer is finished. So this is how we'll implement debouncing here. So let's create the timeout ref first. Okay, so we'll make use of useRef here from React, and it will be of type node.js timeout. Okay, or null, and by default we'll keep it null. Okay, in this timeout ref, we'll add the timer. So if the timer is present, we'll clear the timer first. And if the timer is not present or the timer has already finished, we'll assign it with the new set timeout. We'll add some delay here so that after user has stopped typing, after this delay, the API call will happen. So we'll keep it 500 millisecond. We can keep it like 1 second or anything we can put it here. If the value has more than 2 letters, only then we will call this API. Otherwise, we'll keep the results empty. For calling this API, we have the fetch users. Okay, and the search string we have stored in the query variable, so we can or for calling the API, we have already created the function fetch users, and we'll pass the value in there. Okay, and if the value is less than 2 letters, we'll just set the results as empty array. So this is about handling the API. So let's try this on our app. For that, we'll open the console first. Okay, and what we can do is we can call the results here. Okay, and let's try. Okay, so results has already printed something here on the initial render. We'll also check the network call is happening as expected or not. So I'll make it fetch XHR, and okay, so I'll search my username SHUBH. Okay, if you just notice, when I stopped typing, after that the API call happened, and it didn't happen while I was typing. So this is how it should work. So if I just write something here, API call is not happening, but if I stopped, yeah, API call is happened now. Here you can see. Okay, so this is debouncing. For the first API call, what we got, yeah, we have got some items here. In the response, you are getting one object with the items array, and in there, if you see, we have the login and avatar URL, and there is much more metadata present here. So we have made one mistake here. So we were supposing that the API will directly return the array of usernames, but that is not the case. We are getting inside the items in the outer object. So let's make that first. Okay, so we made the mistake at uh, setting the results. So in the fetch users, if you see, this res variable is not the array, it is the object. So what we can do is res dot items, okay, dot slice, okay, but this items, so this can also be null. So what we can do is we can fallback it with some empty array, okay, and also optionally chaining it, so that our code will not break and it will not introduce any kind of errors in there. So let's verify first that we are setting the results correctly or not. What I can do is I'll write Shubham, okay. So now this is the results array, and here I'm able to set the result array, okay, and there is too much data inside it, but we'll need mostly the login, this login, and the avatar URL for our app. So let's close the console for now so that we'll get some space. Okay, yes. So our handle change is working perfectly fine. So let's head over to the next part of this question. So in the next part, we have to show the results we got from the GitHub API. So let's start with that. We'll create one results container here. So basically it will be one unordered list, okay. Give some class name, auto complete results, okay, and we should only display this list when we have results, right? If we don't have the results, we don't need to display this list. So result dot length, because this results is the use state variable in which we are storing the results. So results dot length greater than 0, only then we have to show this list, okay. So what inside this? So in the results, we are getting the autocomplete results. So let's map that. Let's call it user, and let's return one li element from there. Okay. Let's add the key first. So key should be unique, right? And it should be string. So what we can do is we'll assign the username itself as the key. So user dot login. Okay. So this is key. And for styling, we'll add one class also here. So it is result item, so we'll add autocomplete result item, okay. And inside that, what we have to do is we have to show the username and the user avatar. So what we can do is we'll add the user, for user avatar we'll add the image tag, and the source we are getting in the avatar URL. So user dot avatar URL, right? We'll add the alt text as well. User avatar, okay. And let's add the class name as well as avatar, okay. So we can and apart from that, what else we need to do here? We'll add one span here, okay, and in that span we'll show the username, user dot login, as the username we are getting in the login key, okay. Yeah, so that's enough for now. Let's test that again. Okay, it's already showing the usernames, okay. Yeah, but what is happening here is we haven't set any height on the user avatar, so it's taking too much height and width, so we'll need to fix it first so that we'll be able to work it further. So for now, okay, class name is avatar, so we'll add one CSS file here. So of course we can add the rest styles later, okay, autocomplete CSS, and let's import this file into our file, okay, autocomplete CSS, and in this file let's add the style for the avatar first. Height will be for 40 pixels and width as again 40 pixels. Okay, yeah, so it has already started looking better. Okay, yes, so let's style further more so that the results will look good. So let's style the result item here. So let's call it display flex. Okay, and we'll justify the content to start, and we'll align the items to the center. Okay, and we'll add some gap as well, one gap of 10 pixels. Okay, yeah, so it is looking somewhat aligned now. And what about the next container? It was autocomplete results, so in that also we'll do the same thing. So we'll add the display flex, but flex direction as column this time. Okay, and we'll add some gap here as well, so let's call it 6px. Okay, yeah, so we are getting this suggestions based on the autocomplete. Obviously we can style it later, but let's head over to the next functional requirement of our problem. So what we have to do next is we have to store the recently searched 10 search strings into local storage, so that whenever we next time come to this page, we'll be able to see the last stored results. Okay, so for that we need to store into local storage, so we'll need one local storage key. We'll add that soon. We'll also need to add select handler on the list item, so that we whenever we click on that list item, so it will be added to the local storage and to the recent list. So let's do that. So we have the list item here, so let's add the select handler here. Okay, so let's call it on click, and we have to pass the user name here, so we can say handle select, and we'll pass the user.login here. Okay, this handle select will write down here almost handle select. Okay, we are getting the username here, username, which will be a string. Okay, and here we will write our handle select logic. So here we have to do three things. So first thing is we have to set the search query as whatever we have selected. So suppose when we write Shubh, we get the list and we click on the Shubh. So this search query should be selected as Shubh. This is the first thing we have to do. We have to, when we have clicked on any of the result, we have to clear this list. Okay, because we are not anymore interested in this list, as we have selected a particular user here. So we'll clear this results list, and the next thing we have to do is we have to save this search string into local storage. So let's do all these things here. So first thing is setting the query. So set query, and it will be set to username. The next thing I said is we have to clear the results list. So let's do that. Set results. Let's get back to the original empty list, and the next thing we have to do is saving to local storage. Save to local storage. Okay, but yeah, while saving the local storage, what if that particular username is already present in the local storage? Correct, so it will be a duplicate entry in the local storage. So for handling that, we'll create one more function here that will be saved to local storage, and will handle all the local storage related stuff there. So for that one, we'll create one local storage key in the constants. So let's create it here. Okay, recent searches is the local storage key, and we'll create one function const save to local. Okay, and we'll take the username again as the string argument. Now we will need one use state variable here for handling the recent list. So let's call it recent and set recent. Okay, and it will be the list of strings, so let's call it string array, and it will be empty by default. Okay, okay, while saving to local, we'll update the existing recents list, so we'll call it updated list. Okay, and we'll add the username at the first, so let's add username here. And what we'll do is we'll remove the username from the existing recent list if it is there. Okay, so recent dot filter. Okay, and we'll get the item here. Item is not equals to username. Okay, and this we are removing if username is already present in list, so as to avoid the duplication, so we are getting the updated list here. But what if this list goes beyond 10, as we have to only store the 10, right? Because if you keep on searching and if you keep on selecting, your local storage will be flooded with those unnecessary searches. For that, what we can do is we'll cap it to most recent 10 usernames, so that our local storage will be cleared time to time and will get most recent 10 usernames there. So for that, what we can do is if updated list dot length is greater than 10, then we'll pop it. Okay, so we'll remove the last or the least recent username from the list. So updated list dot pop. Okay, great. Okay, so now we are good to go. So we'll do set recent. So we'll set the recent, we'll update it to updated list. This is the first thing. And then we'll store to local storage, local storage dot set item. Here we'll pass the key. So it is recent searches, and we'll stringify, as local storage will always store the data in the string format. We'll stringify it. Updated list. Okay, we are getting one error here. Okay, it is saying string or string array. Okay, we missed restructuring this one. Okay, so actually we were adding array into array, so that's wrong. Okay, so we have solved this. So this save to local is okay now, so we'll call it here save to local, and we'll pass the username. Okay, and we have already connected the on click to handle select. So let's test this feature now. So for that, I'll again open the console. Okay, so let's test that our code is saving the searches to the local storage or not. So I'll add one search term here. Okay, we got the results. I click on the first one, and if you see in the local storage, we are getting our list stored here. So we can say we are able to save the data to local storage. So the next thing we have to achieve is whenever we reload the page, we should be able to see the recent searches stored in our local storage. For that, we'll make use of useEffect hook. So use effect. Let's import that from the React, and it will take one callback, one dependency array. And this we can write, and we can grab the saved recent searches saved, and we'll say local storage dot get item, and we'll pass these recent searches key here. Okay, we'll get the saved searches here, and if this saved data is present, then we can set it in set recent, and it should be JSON parsed, as we are storing it as a string. Okay, yes, so we should be able to grab the data stored in the local storage whenever we are reloading the page. Okay, so this is about it. Currently we are selecting the usernames, but we are not showing it below the search bar, so that is also in our use case. So let's do that. So here below the search results, what we can do is, if the recent list has some usernames to show, we'll show this list. So let's create one div here. Okay, let's call it recent searches. Okay, inside that we'll again add one h3 here, so that we'll be able to, and let's call it recent title. And in that we can say recent searches. Okay, besides this we'll add one unordered list here. Let's call it recent list. Okay, and inside that we'll map the recent list. So we'll get the username here, and we'll return it as a li, and we'll call it recent item. Okay, and inside this we'll show the name, and let's add the key as well. Key, as we are storing only unique names, we can store this name as the key. Right, so we have this recent searches shown here, so we are good here. And on clicking of these recent searches as well, we can reuse that handle select logic that we used in selecting the username from the auto search results. So let's add that logic here. On click, handle select, and here we'll pass the name, so same thing. Okay, so we are able to select it. Okay, so it is working fine. And also, as we are selecting it, it is going to the recent one. So suppose if I click on this one, so this username will become recent as we are selecting it. Yes, so we have done most of the coding part of this. So let's add some style so that it will look beautiful. So for avatar, we have already done the thing. So for styling, we can start with the style of container. So let's add one class here. The container is named as autocomplete container. Okay, what we can do is we can assign some max width here, like 400 pixels. Okay, we can add some margin as well. Margin, so it can be 20 pixel all auto. Okay, we can add some padding of like 15, 14 or 16. Okay, 16 px. We can add the border as well so that it will look like a box border. Okay, and we'll add some border radius as well. Let's call it 14 px. Okay, border radius is here. Okay, and that's it for the container part of it. So let's style it later. So let's style the input. That is the most important part. Autocomplete input. Okay. In the input, what we can do is we'll add the width as 100%. We'll add the padding as 10. Okay, we'll add the padding as 10 px. We'll add the border 1 px solid gray again. Okay, and if you see, it is going outside this, so let's try box sizing border box, and on this as well. Yes, so we have fixed it using box sizing border box. Okay, and what we can do is we can add the border radius again 14px, so as to get it consistent. Okay, yeah, and that's it for our username, I would say. Okay, so let's do one thing. We'll next add styles for the results to complete results. So first thing we have to do is okay, let me add some here. Okay, so we have already added the flex here. For the avatar, what we can do is we can make it fully rounded. So let's add some more. Let's add some big number here so that it will become totally rounded. Okay, so for the results, let's add some border. Okay, and let's as this is looking like it is some another box, so let's remove the top border. Okay, and okay, so what we'll do next is we'll make the autocomplete input as relative so that we can display the suggestions absolute to it. Position relative, and let's make it position absolute. Okay, and let's call it bottom as 10. Okay, and on the results part, if we have added any margin top, we'll make it 0. And on the input also, okay, so we have removed the margin at the bottom of the input as well. Okay, and let's add some background to this, as it is transparent. Let's grab it actually. Okay, yeah, so we are getting some background here. Again, here also we'll add the box sizing as border box. Okay, yeah, so we are getting the results here. On the list item part, we'll add the cursor as pointer so that when we go to this, we'll get the pointer here. And also we'll add some hover style here. Results item, background color, we'll add some background color. Let me okay, let's go with black first. Okay, there was typo. Yeah, okay, yeah, we are getting it. So let's okay, so we are getting it, so let's grab some another color that is dark. Yeah, okay, yeah, here you can see we are getting something. Yeah, so you can select it here. Okay, so we are done with the username autocomplete part of it. Okay, so let's now style the recent list. Okay, in this list, as we are getting these bullet points, so let's type as none. Okay, okay, no, this should be list style as none. Okay, let me see if we have added that. Okay, there was a typo. Recent list. Okay, okay, so it is removed here. What we can do is we'll display it as flex. Justify justify content will go start, will cap it 8px, and we'll do align items start. Okay, no start, actually center. Okay, and we can wrap it. Okay, flex to make it responsive. Okay, also we'll style the recent item. We'll add some background color here, black. and just select something more interesting. We'll add some padding, which will be 6px vertically, 10px horizontally. Great. Okay, let's add the border radius. 14px again. Right. Let's fine tune some more things here. Let's capitalize it. Yeah, so we are done with it, and we have completed all the cases here. And if I just reload it, okay, so we are able to get all the data saved in the local storage. So yes, we have completed this problem. Okay, so let's have a quick recap. We used GitHub's public API to fetch usernames. We used debounce to call APIs from the input, saved last 10 unique usernames to the local storage, gave user-friendly UX with avatars, and all this under 100 lines of code. If this helped you, drop love in your comments and tell me which question you would like next in this series. Subscribe and save this playlist because the next video can help you crack your dream job. And that's it for today. Bye bye.